So let's get into it. We got a chance to see Austin play the last time you and I were in the booth, so a couple rounds ago there. Austin played really well. It was an excellently played match between both players, but particularly Austin, was able to walk an extremely fine line and come out as the victor. I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to keep up that level of play here against Raph, or if perhaps fatigue or something could set in. I mean, this is day 3 of the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, the 2 rounds we did see him play was against kind of a more straightforward matchup, right? We saw him play against the Gruul Adventures decks, where you just kind of systematically kind of try to dismantle what the threats that they're trying to pose are. Here, it's a little bit different, right? You're playing the mirror, but at the same time, Austin was talking about how he was just defeating mirror after mirror during the Swiss, as he had the best record going into the tournament. So he feels very, very confident with playing against anybody in the mirror outside of his teammate, I believe, for this event. Actually, was he gonna say? But anyways, he calls him the endgame boss, Aaron Gertler, who's currently waiting for somebody in the finals.
That's right. And we should mention that, too, that Aaron is very much the end boss of the tournament at this point, having worked his way through the upper bracket, smashing everybody on his way to that championship match seat. And so that means that Gertler awaits not the winner of this, but the winner of whoever wins this against Nassif in that last round there.
Yeah, and Levy does have the Clover start here, and he's kind of in a pretty interesting spot here, deciding whether or not he wants to run out of Clover here or just use Stomp on the Edgewall Innkeeper. The upside of playing the Clover, I mean, he still really, really needs to find a mana source here, and specifically a green mana source to be able to actually cast Fertile Footsteps here for his Beanstalk Giant.
Yeah, I'm already getting nervous for Raph Levy here, as this could be a very easy one for Austin. If Raph misses a couple of land drops in a row or has a couple of tap lands with no green, Austin just doing, I don't know, fair things, maybe like on the slightly unfair end of fair, but not the kind of broken stuff, could easily find himself in a position to just pick up game number 1 in really a non-game if Raph doesn't get it together.
Yeah, and Austin actually had a pretty interesting decision there. He could have just run out a Bone Crusher Giant that turn, draw a card, and just continue kind of trying to get ahead on cards, or alternatively cast Fertile Footsteps here to try to set himself up for a potential future Omnath Omnath card to draw. By playing the Bone Crusher Giant, he would have been able to draw a card, and also play around potentially a Bone Crusher Giant.
Unfortunately, Raph Levy missed, and in a big way here, Paul. It was Escape to the Wilds. Not only another card that needs a green source, but one that costs 5 mana, so he's nowhere near it. The best play he can make here is to wipe the board with double Stomp off of the Lucky Clover. He'll be happy to be able to do that, but the land drop here was critical.
Yeah, and Austin probably just wants to keep drawing cards here. He's going to go Edgewall Innkeeper, probably Bone Crusher Giant, try to find Omnath, Escape to the Wilds, any one of those cards to kind of get his late game engine going.
Oh, there's a Fabled Passage, close, but not quite. So it's a glimmer of hope here for Raph Levy. That can become a forest, though not this turn.
Yeah, so, I mean, Raph doesn't really have any good way to interact with what's on the board right now. He doesn't have another Stomp. Probably playing out a Lucky Clover here. I mean, bouncing Edgewall Innkeeper and Bone Crusher Giant isn't really getting you a whole lot, right?
Right.
You're taking 2 damage for targeting the Bone Crusher Giant. Then Austin can just replay those spells and draw a card. So probably going to set himself up here by playing a Clover, getting a forest off this Fabled Passage, and then next turn, he will be able to put 3 lands into play. So he'll be able to come back. It's just a question of how much pressure Austin can put on while Raph is a little bit behind on board. Oof. So I think Austin's going to bounce one of these Clovers to try to slow down Raph's mana. So bounce one of the Clovers and just play a Brazen Borrower and then just get in.
Get the card off of the Innkeeper as well. Again, the things Austin is doing right now are not the type of things that are going to slam the door on a game here, but they are moving a game plan forward where Raph has stumbled significantly.
Yeah, Well, because Austin doesn't have kind of those two primary plans of trying to snowball the game with Lucky Clover or trying to get going with Omnath or Escape to the Wilds, well, guess what? Just playing old school Teamer Adventures is also extremely powerful. Edgewall Innkeeper plus these adventure cards are still a very, very viable angle to come out ahead here. Well, Raph is going to take a lot of damage here. He can run out the beans. He can go Fertile Footsteps, get 2 lands, and then he can disrupt Austin a little bit by using Petty Theft and bouncing 2 permanents. Alternatively, he can just run out a Bonecrusher Giant to try to trade with the one that's in play. A lot of different options. Probably wants to find a line that just minimizes the amount of damage that he takes.
Curious to see long-term how effective that play was from Austin to bounce the other Clover. He didn't have a whole lot else to do, but I did find that really interesting just because it does limit what Raph can do. With 2 Clovers out, getting to untap with the Giant all of a sudden would leave Levy with fine mana.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh. So that's an Omnath, but Austin doesn't have a Fabled Passage here, so it doesn't have a way to put multiple lands onto the battlefield here. He can take an ultra aggressive line of just casting Shatter Skull Smashing, get that Bonecrusher Giant off the battlefield and get in for 8, or he can just continue to add to his board here. And if he did, there's also 2 viable options here. He could just choose to play a Giant Beanstalker Giant, right? Draw a card and put a 7/7 on the battlefield. Alternatively, he can just run out Omnath and see what he draws, and also make sure that he has mana to cycle the Ketria Triumph.
All right, he's going to take the slightly slower option here. Big Beanstalk. But boy, that is quite a board for Austin. 15 power out versus just the 4/3. Shatter Skull Smashing could certainly be relevant here if part of Raph's plan is to put out a few blockers. You see the issue here. Raph, having stumbled on mana, even though he is now recovered, his hand is literally all spells. He's got 6 spells in hand and a Beanstalk Giant on an adventure, and he needs to piece together enough ways to deploy as many of these spells as possible while also not dying.
Yeah, and Austin actually has mana next turn.
Ooh, really wanted to see a land there for Raph. Austin is like, don't hit a land, don't hit a land, don't hit a land, don't hit a land. And he said, let's go, because that means that Raph missed. And Raph is frustrated about that. He really, really needed a hit there.
And Austin has mana to Shatter Skull Smashing for 6. And when you do it for 6, the amount of damage that you deal gets doubled. So what we can do is Shatter Skull Smashing for 6 on both the Bonecrusher Giant and the Omnath, and they would both die. And that would make it so that Austin can attack for lethal. Now, Raph does have the Petty Theft here, so he can pick up 2 of the creatures that Austin has. But at the end of the day, Austin can still remove 2 of the large creatures that's on Raph's side of the board, while also still being able to get in for at least 4 damage.
Making things interesting here, Paul, is Fae of Wishes for Austin. Is there a card he can get that could just end the thing right now, even through a Brazen Borrower?
I don't think so. I think it's in his best interest to, because it's so, he feels that it's probably pretty unlikely that he's going to be able to win this turn. So it's probably just more important to just get these 2 creatures off the battlefield and just continue applying maximum pressure here. Because if we go to the end, if we go to the late game, Levy's going to be the one that has the advantage. He's the one who's got that Lucky Clover. He's the one who's been able to get additional lands here off the Beanstalk Giant. So Austin really wants to just end this game as quickly as possible.
So he gets to just take out the whole board and then free roll a lethal attack. But as we know, Raph Levy does have Petty Theft, so he will not be dying this turn at least.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
The other target here is so awkward. If you bounce the Brazen Borrower, all of a sudden Austin gets to use that back as a tempo option, right? If you bounce Bone Crusher, you're still taking 2. So this still puts Levy down to 3.
Maximum pressure indeed, and another non-land card here. Raph Levy seems to have just missed too many land drops at this point. Yeah, it's a stacked hand. There's even another Brazen Borrower you could see certain ways out, but it just doesn't seem like that's in the cards here for Levy this time. Really needed a hit. Really, a green source way back on turn 3 would have been ideal. I think that Raph probably would have been in a real slugfest with Austin at this point, going card for card, perhaps even just being ahead. But as it stands, bottlenecked on mana. And I'm saying that about a player who has 6 lands on the battlefield as well.
Yeah, I mean, he missed the land drop, and then the land that he drew was a Fabled Passage with 2 in play. So It was brutal. If that was an untapped land, he would very well still be in this game. But I think missing those 2 crucial land drops was huge, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to come back from that.
And he's just going to go ahead and run out double Fae of Wishes.
Fling, time to fling.
And Austin has easy victory here. Thanks to his sideboard being at play, he can cast Granted, go get Fling, and Fling, well, either creature, in fact. At Raph Levy's head, at 3 life, either one would be lethal. And there you go.
Kaboom.
That is Austin picking up game number 1. He was just able to capitalize on the mana problems. And, you brought this point up in the middle of the game, Paul, and this is something that you'll see in many different forms of Magic, which is that when your opponent is struggling on mana, it is often correct to kind of full court press them and try to get them dead, really limiting their draw steps, because every turn that went by, Raph Levy, if he had found a few extra lands, he had so much more action in hand at that point than Bursavich. He would have been able to come back. But Austin correctly applied maximum pressure, limited the number of draw steps that Raph got a little lucky that Raph missed, and finished off game number 1.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes this matchup so interesting. Sometimes you see these kind of long, drawn-out grind fests that we saw with Gertler and the Seif, right, where everybody's just kind of doing their thing, drawing a bunch of cards and casting their spells, and just trying to remove everything that their opponents have. Other times, you can kind of shift gears, and that's what Austin did. His hand didn't allow him to do the Omnath thing, didn't allow him to do the Clover thing. But guess what? Didn't matter. He still was able to press the advantage, get cards with that Edgewall Innkeeper, and just apply maximum pressure before Levy came back.
Look at this hand that Raph kept.
This is pretty sketchy.
2 Triumphs, 3 Fabled Passage, an Omnath, and an Escape to the Wilds. And so far, he's been able to add an Omnath to it.
Yeah, this is an extremely slow hand that Levy kept. There's no interaction, right? There's
None.
Just turn 4 Omnath. So if your opponent goes Clover or Edgewall Innkeeper or anything like that, it's just going to take him a while to get caught up. Now, on the flip side, if Austin doesn't have a way to interact with these Omnaths, Levy does have the play of Omnath into Fabled Passage eventually.
Yeah, and the second Omnath means that Levy can just run one out on turn 4 to see if it lives, and if it doesn't, he'll still get that option. Look, these are the cards that matter in the matchup, right? Omnath and Escape to the Wilds are kind of the core engine. You will see the adventure cards get played out, but they don't have as big of an effect as they do in some other matchups that you'll see. It's really about the big hitters, although now that I say that, Beanstalk Giant would have been pretty nice. Awkward Lucky Clover here for Levy. Don't think he's interested in that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, given that he's got the backup Omnath, he's certainly going to just be slamming this one into play.
So Omnath on the battlefield, get a card back, say go. And now it's up to Austin to try to deal with Omnath. But even if he can't, Raph has a beautiful follow-up with another Omnath into Fabled Passage, which will net him 5 mana.
Austin wants Fabled Passage. He's only got 3 in his main.
Oh, he didn't hit it. There's Omnaths facing off against each other. Get used to this one. Here comes Fabled Passage, though, for Raph Levy, who gets to untap with the other Omnath as well, and has found Fae of Wishes to go with that Lucky Clover. So, hey, that keep worked out pretty well here for Raph.
Yeah, now Raph has a ton of options. He's got access to 9 mana this turn. If he wants to just keep the opposing Omnath in check to make sure Austin can't go Fabled Passage of his own potentially off the top, he could go Lucky Clover, Granted, find a Red Cat melee, go grab that, and possibly even something like a negate or a neutralize. I'm not sure how much mana he's going to have left over after this to be able to stop whatever Austin plays on the following turn.
Okay, so here comes Granted going on the stack after the Lucky Clover is resolved. So that'll be 2 copies. So it looks like, Paul, he'll end up with 3 mana left over.
Yeah, so he's good.
Perhaps negate plus the Red Cat melee?
Yeah, that would make some sense here, just to try to slow things down. Additionally, he can have that negate backup for that Escape to the Wilds that he's going to want to resolve next turn. Mystical Dispute is also a consideration if you think your opponent might have a follow-up on that, right? And Mystical Dispute allows you to kind of fight through that.
Beautiful turn here for Raph Levy. Boy, that slow start was not punished by Austin Bursavich, and as a result, Raph was able to just curve right up into Omnath, play the land, and get everything rolling, even with the negate at the ready. Now, Austin has a backup Omnath and a land, but it is not Fabled Passage.
Yeah, it is not Fabled Passage, and so Levy is going to have another explosive turn here. Wait till you see Austin's response here after the other Fabled Passage. Oh, never mind, poker face. But he's going to play an Escape to the Wilds here with what looks to be 5 mana at his disposal.
I think Austin may as well be checking his email at this point, because this one has gotten way out of hand in favor of Raph Levy. And this Escape to the Wilds could be the play that really puts him too far ahead to come back for Austin. Let's see what he hits. Not bad. Another answer for the opposing Omnath.
Yeah. This is just one of those games where the Omnath just kind of gets out of hand. And once it does, you're just so far ahead and have so much more mana than your opponent that it doesn't really matter. And you just kind of run away with the game.
Yeah, this is the interesting part. When you do have access to this many resources, right? Whether, like, look, at this point, it feels like Raph could roughly just start kind of dragging things forward onto the play area and just let it go. But, you know, in tight games, in games where that's not the case, the sequencing, how you plan out your next couple of turns, and all of that's going to matter, which, you know, I think is why we've been talking about Aaron Gertler, who's awaiting in the championship match for whoever gets through this and then gets through Nassif after. You know, that's the thing that you get from all that practice, right? That's the thing that you get from the reps.
Yeah, absolutely. He has the most number of arena matches played in both standard and historic. For any other competitor, compared to any other competitor coming into this event, he's also won a tournament already playing Temur Clover. And even when we were watching his match against Nassif, he played quickly, knew exactly what he was going to wish for, and honestly, his play really, really impressed me. So not a big surprise to hear Austin speaking very highly of his teammate, because he very well might be the best adventure player in this top 8.
And we're in the nonsense zone now from Raph Levy's perspective. You can see all of those cards available. Huge mana bumps happening every turn as well. This is where basically it's impossible for this deck to run out of gas. It's just a matter of putting together the victory and making sure that you don't open yourself up unnecessarily to the potential for a comeback or a finish.
Yeah, we are officially in the nonsense zone.
Yeah, and Austin's had enough. He just took off.
Where is he?
You look,
Austin,
I wouldn't sit there either. Like, I don't want to have to watch this.
You're up a game, man.
Empty chair. It happens.
He did pass priority, probably. And look, he's back.
He didn't even miss his turn.
Yeah, and Levy's still playing.
Austin's like, what did I miss? Oh, you're still going off? Okay, fine.
Okay.
I'll be here waiting. And as is often the case, the board is left with nothing left after one of those turns and even some damage coming in.
I wonder if Levy... So Levy can run out an Edgewell Innkeeper. He could also play out Bone Crusher Giant. And Austin doesn't have the mana to wish for a Storm's Wrath. So
right,
won't be able to clear the board.
Yeah, you can see Levy ahead on basically every metric we have. Life total, cards, artifacts, creatures, you name it.
Soul Guide Lantern.
All right, nice.
Look what I can do.
Levy likes it. Can I go ahead and sacrifice it to draw a card, but there's nothing in the deck that's going to save Austin at this point. He's going to pass the turn back over to Raph Levy, who just has to turn everything sideways, and that's game number 2 going to Raphael Levy, the Hall of Famer from France. They are now tied up at 1 game apiece. Paul, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll get the third and deciding game, between Austin and Raph. Don't go anywhere.
When I think of yourself and Nassif and the 2 Ruel brothers and Guillaume Waffatapa all clustered in that sort of 2004 Nassif Player of the Year through to 2006 Waffatapa winning Worlds and so on in Paris, just that kind of Yokohama rather. Did you suffer from that glut of great French players?
I don't think it hurt me that much, it's not in a like physical way or
right,
that it motivates you. It's just like, I should do better, I should be there, and that's how it worked most of the time. Like, I remember I took a little break after European Championships, but because then like early 2000 on the French, that was me on the French scene. I was in the front of the French scene, and then European Championships happened. I lost in the finals in a very hurtful way this time. This one that was painful in every single way you can put it, because I lost the match to Noah Boken. Mm-hmm. I lost 3-2 when I should have won 4-1. I threw away 2 games. I was completely overwhelmed, and it took me a long time to recover. And then for the next year and a half or 2 years, I was like, yeah, this is hard for me. And this is the time where Olivier and Antoine did really well. Mm-hmm. And they kind of completely eclipsed me. I was just not there anymore. And when I came back, I was like, yeah, well, I'm still around. I'm still good. I'm going to show you. And then I started top 8ing again and doing well. That's when probably I accumulated the most GP top 8s in the early 2000s. I think I had like 2 or 3 back-to-back GP top 8s, like in different consecutive months.
And welcome back to coverage here of the 2020 season grand finals. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Paul, we're picking up right where we left off. You didn't miss anything here. Right into the sideboards. Between games 1 and 2, the sideboarding was very quick. In fact, I don't think the players really changed anything. And looks like they're taking a gander here to see maybe if there's something that they want to mess around with. But as we know, these granted or wish-based sideboards, it's pretty tough to move too many things to the main.
Yeah, I mean, the only consideration is probably just having a couple of counter spells. Brazen Borrower is not especially good in this matchup, so I could see potentially cutting a couple of copies of that and maybe bringing in a couple of Mystical Disputes to help deal with opposing Omnaths early, or also help a counter war if you expect your opponents to also maybe bring in a Negate or a Mystical Dispute.
Okay, decider time. Who is going to go home and who's going to advance to play against Gabriel Nassif? That is the question that we're about to answer here, Paul, as players look at their openers. Now, this is a land-heavy opener But this time,
ooh, land light.
yikes, land light now. So Austin's going to 5 here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was,
Yikes.
that first hand, he was probably just looking for a clover or something to do early. Certainly he had plays, but they weren't that impressive. And of course, the second hand, you just kind of have to ship back because you only had that one land.
So Austin's deciding what the second card to put away is, but I have to say, there is a Beanstalk Giant, and there are 3 lands in the opener. There's some hope there if we could see an Omnath or an Escape to the Wilds, right?
Yeah. He doesn't want to be shipping any of the lands because his most powerful cards do cost 4 more mana. So going to be kind of hoping on that. Meanwhile, on the other side here, Levy with ability to have Stomp in case Austin goes for the Edgewall Innkeeper plan, and then has the turn 3 Beanstalk Giant into Escape to the Wilds.
So how well is Levy going to be able to punish this double mulligan here from Austin?
I mean, it's actually kind of, Austin still has a shot here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Levy has answers to creatures in the form of Thundering Rebuke and Bone Crusher Giant, but hey, if Austin draws an Escape to the Wilds off the top, he's still very much in this game.
And we saw in game 1, Raph basically kept the opposite of this hand. It was land heavy, but had Omnath and Escape to the Wilds. This one, land neutral, I'll say, but, just with the Escape now, but a bunch of adventure cards here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, given his hand, it looks like he's probably just going to be going for the Escape to the Wilds plan here on the next turn. Meanwhile, Austin's on the Wish plan here, probably getting an Escape to the Wilds. Given that he's double mulligan, he really needs to just get those cards back.
Yep.
So I don't think he can play in a manner where he's trying to slow Levy down from what he's trying to do.
Yeah, in that way, Austin's plan is simple. It takes away options, basically, when you have to do what you have to do. Unfortunately, that means that your opponent gets to react to you doing what you need to do where they have choices. And right now, we see Raphael Levy kind of curving up into an Escape to the Wilds of his own.
Yeah, and Levy's the one who's got the edge here because he's the first one to fire off this Escape to the Wilds, and he'll be the first one to be able to kind of craft what he wants to play onto the battlefield on the following turn.
Yeah, Raph was on the draw this game, but kind of broke serve with the Fertile Footsteps. And now we see him really starting to turbo out with Escape to the Wilds, which he'll be able to play a land off of. And it looks like he's considering playing a forest, perhaps to get that Edgewall Innkeeper on the battlefield.
Yeah, if he thinks Austin's going to run out the Escape to the Wild, well, I guess Austin can still find Stomp plus another mana source. I think Raph was just considering whether or not he wants to just go Forest and Edgewall Innkeeper this turn.
Mm-hmm.
Might still choose to go for it because given what he sees removed from game, maybe he just wants to play a big Beanstalk Giant next turn.
Mm-hmm.
But that Escape to the Wilds was not very good for Levy.
No, it wasn't.
That was 4 lands and a Beanstalk Giant.
Here comes Escape to the Wilds for Austin. A lot riding on this Escape. He really needs to hit. Did he hit?
Oh, yeah. A lot of action here for Austin. He's got a Fabled Passage in hand. There's another Escape to the Wilds and Omnath. So next turn, he can go Omnath, Fabled Passage, Escape to the Wilds, and he's got Mystical Dispute up this turn if Levy had something like an Omnath to play this turn.
Okay, now that is a face-up Mystical Dispute, so Levy knows, right?
Right, and of course, Mystical Dispute can't be cast on non-blue spells for this turn because Austin only has up 2 mana.
Right. Still, a lot of action there for Austin. Trying to make a comeback after a rough mulligan to 5, but I will say, of any deck in the format, if you give it enough time, this one can erase a mulligan to 5 like no other deck.
Austin has to be thrilled here.
Yeah.
He mulliganed to 5, Levy resolved the first Escape to the Wilds, and now Austin's about to go off here.
All right, here it comes. Omnath,
Fabled
first things
Passage.
first. And there's that Fabled Passage in hand for Austin.
Yep.
That's 4 life. Here comes the 4 mana.
Fabled Pat, it's like a Black Lotus. It's better.
Right.
In conjunction with the Omnath here.
It is. And Raph does not look happy about this. Look, when your opponent mulligans to 5 on the play here in game 3, you got to be thrilled with that. But now I almost see resignation here from Raph as he nods his head going, this did not go how I wanted. I got a 7-7 down. That's pretty cool, but not nearly as cool as what Austin's doing over there. Look, I mean, this is somebody who mulliganed to 5. Look at all the cards he has access to.
This is absurd. I wonder if Austin just kind of wants to keep the board, wants to just get that Beanstalk Giant off the battlefield. Just thinking about how he could possibly lose from this situation. I suppose Raph can wish for an Ember Cleave, attack with both the creatures and attack for 18 with the Beanstalk Giant next turn. So he can play the Triome.
There's that third trigger from Omnath as well.
Okay, it looks like he's just going to go for the Innkeeper.
Yeah, Omnath has put in a good day's work there. 3 landfall triggers, creating life, mana, and damage. And now Austin's going to pass the turn back and allow this Beanstalk Giant to stay on the battlefield. At 23 life, can't really lose from this position, I suppose.
Yeah, and Levy's play from here is probably just going to be kill the 2 creatures on the battlefield and play Bone Crusher Giant and attack for 8. It's pretty much the only option that he has at this point.
That's the big play, huh? A lot of lands here for Raph Levy. And doesn't have the access to, well, like in this case, Omnath. You know, just having that Omnath down for that 1 turn cycle for Austin was devastating for Raph. And if you look, yeah, you know, you're still getting the benefits of adventure in general by being able to cast spells plus creatures. But this is a nice attack for 8. But look at the hand for Raph. Literally all lands. The only hope there is a Raugrin Triumph that you can cycle or a draw step.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, I mean, Austin, of course, doesn't know the rest of Raph's hand, but given kind of the spells that Levy's played, you know that he doesn't have some of the heavy hitters. You know that he doesn't have an Omnath or an Escape to the Wilds or the Fae of Wishes, right? So just has to kind of figure out how he can lose from the situation. And I do feel like the most likely way for him to be able to lose here is if Raph top decks a Fae of Wishes, gets an Ember Cleave, and gets in for a huge attack with Beanstalk Giant.
Right, and it looks like Austin agrees with you, Paul. He's going to use Chop Down to take care of that Beanstalk Giant, send it packing, and just leave. The only creature left is the Bone Crusher, which even with an Ember Cleave wouldn't be enough to kill Austin from this board state. Giant Killer also is going to hit the battlefield right after Edgewall Innkeeper. There's 2 of those. That's 2 cards in the hand. And now Hardcast Fae of Wishes is 2 more cards in the hand.
Yeah, and he's going to play another one, probably.
Wow.
2 more cards.
1/4 flyer, draw 2 cards here. And the amount of advantage that Austin has been able to accrue is simply overwhelming. Raph Levy just cannot seem to put together a good draw this game. It's a fabled passage off the top of the library. Raugrin Triumph, though, does reveal Omnath here, Paul.
Yeah, but Levy doesn't have a whole lot to do with this mana. I mean,
how about an escape here?
He needs this draw to be very good.
Okay, well, it ended up being Fae of Wishes, which he can use this turn thanks to Omnath plus the Fabled Passage there.
Yeah, he has access to 6 mana this turn. So, I mean, I'm wondering if he also has a Blazing Volley in his sideboard. I don't think that he does. Because if he did, then he can get that, I guess, to try to get the Edgewall Innkeepers off the battlefield because they are kind of getting out of hand here. Although the damage might have already been done.
It may be too late, yeah. And yeah, he does not have a Blazing Volley in the board either. Okay, well, here comes Fabled Passage. Back up to 20 goes Levy. He's going to get that mana and fire off this Fae of Wishes, but it's going to have to be something special.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you know, with Austin casting these Fae of Wishes, I mean, each one drew him 2 cards. So he's more than happy now to just pitch these lands to just kind of get them back into his hand to try to lock up the game by probably finding his fair share of counters.
Yeah, it didn't actually work out for him as far as finding the win in hand. They just produced a bunch of lands for the most part. But as you mentioned, the activated ability lets you kind of be card neutral there, but then go get a card from your sideboard. And of course, that's the type of card that could win the game for you. Okay, so Raph decided that the best way to go here was just brute force and go get an escape to the wild to try to set up for a potential big turn next turn with Omnath on the battlefield. But this is where Raph has to sit back in his chair and go, it's your turn. I have no mana available whatsoever. And with the amount of cards that Austin has access to, you know, Raph is going to have not super optimistic thoughts about how this turn's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, Austin's going to draw so many cards here, but nothing too relevant yet. He's been drawing a lot of lands. He wants to convert one of these Fae of Wishes into something that impacts the board in some way.
Austin's very much in the zone here, working his way through the sequences, trying to find what he needs to find. He's drawing 4 to 6 cards a turn now.
Wow,
a lot of lands, though.
More mana sources here. So at this point, I mean, this escape to the wilds that Raphael Levy has is going to resolve. Additionally, Austin doesn't have a way to actually kill the Omnath that's in play.
How is this possible? He has drawn 8 cards additional to his draw step over the past 2 turns just off of Edgewall Innkeepers, and he doesn't even have an answer for a 4/4.
Yeah, I mean, this is the turn. This is the window for Levy to try to get back in this game. I mean, Austin's up something like 10 cards here. But Levy next turn with that Fabled Passage and that Escape to the Wilds, I mean, he's going to have a ton of mana available, so he might be able to come back.
It's really interesting watching Raph's facial expressions, because when he passed, he's just like, yeah, give it to me, hit me with it. I got it coming. And now he's like, okay, that resolves. Yeah, you draw 2 cards. Okay, you got 2 more cards. And then it's like Fertile Footsteps. And he's like, sure, you're going to pass the turn. Okay, maybe we have a game here. I mean, seriously, Austin has flooded out really hard after drawing all those cards.
Yeah, this is the big turn here. What are we going to see off this Escape to the Wilds that'll get Levy back into this game?
Levy's going to start off with Fabled Passage, gain a life up to 24, crack it, go get a land, and he's going to have a ton of mana available to him. It looks like 14? And here's Escape to the Wilds that could give him another one as well. Let's see what he hits. Whoa! Well, he didn't hit a lot of lands.
That's 5 spells.
Spells.
That is 5 spells.
The opposite of what Austin's done.
And with this Clover, I mean, wow.
Wow, this is 2 players now with the full combo, if you will, set up. And they are going to throw huge amounts of mana, card advantage, and resources at each other and see who can end up piecing together a win. But we actually have a game here. I really thought this one was over. I thought Austin was going to be able to just run away with it. But he has drawn so many lands off of those extra cards from the Innkeepers that it has left a small window for Raph to climb through, and he just busted it down.
Yeah. However, keep in mind, Austin was able to put a ton of mana into play last turn with all those Fertile Footsteps. He still has 2 Edgewall Innkeepers in play.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, he can just cast this Bone Crusher Giant, draw 2 more cards. So he's very much still in this game. But Raph Levy, from what looked like basically game over, now is very much in this game.
Like, can he go get a sweeper here, Paul? Could he get Storm's Wrath and just...
So he could
send it all away?
He could get Storm's Wrath. However, if he gets Storm's Wrath, he will tap out. And then Austin can return the Fae of Wishes to his hand. And then will have the ability to wish for anything and resolve it
Okay.
While Levy is tapped out.
So perhaps the Bone Crusher on the Innkeepers is a more succinct way to get the important creatures off the battlefield here.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine a wish is going to be happening here, but I'm just not sure that it's going to be for the Storm's Wrath. Although,
Right.
How did he has two? He's left himself 2 white mana available,
And then a Triome,
and then a
as well as a Forest, yeah. So let's see what he wants to go get. I mean, some of the stuff that comes to mind is Ugin, right? I mean, just have the biggest boy of them all. He got Shatter the Sky.
Huh.
What else? Maybe he does want a sweeper.
Yeah, I mean, he got a Shatter the Sky. He's trying to look for the most impactful card that he can get. It could be a once in the future. It's an Ugin.
It's an Ugin. So Shatter the Sky and Ugin. He has the ability to cast Shatter the Sky here. And if you look at the board and you look at Austin's hand, it is going to resolve.
Yeah, and I mean, this is basically just reset the game, right? I mean, look at all the cards that Raph Levy has exiled here that he has access to next turn because of that Escape to the Wilds.
So this is huge for Austin. Austin's going to return one of these Fae of Wishes and try to set up for next turn to find something to combat what Raph Levy has put together here. This game, big stuff, and it resolved. A huge sigh of relief from Levy, who says, how am I even still in this game? But he very much is. Oh,
yeah,
man.
He also has the Clover advantage here, so Austin needs to choose wisely here because he does know that there is an Ugin in Levy's hand. Unlikely for Levy to play next turn, given all the cards exiled here that he needs to run out, but still needs to be mindful of that fact.
So it looks like Austin's going to kick things off with an Escape to the Wilds because, he needed more cards.
Yeah, why not? And now he's been able to even up the number of Clovers in play.
Mm-hmm.
So he can play a Clover, then he can use Fae of Wishes to search up some ways to try to protect himself next turn.
Right. This isn't a situation where he can actually push for a win just yet. So he wants to maintain this current board state, especially considering his mana advantage. Currently, he has 15 lands on the battlefield to Raph's 11.
Oh, and it looks like he wants to keep the lucky Clover in check and try to win that way. Yeah, so he's gonna use the Return to Nature here to get the Clover and still be able to keep up Negate. And this makes sense. I mean, given the fact that there are multiple Fae of Wishes here exiled, or at least one, he doesn't want Raph to be able to dig into his sideboard and get 2 cards.
Raph just has to be wondering how he's even had this many turns. But I'll tell you, he is all set to go here.
Wait,
There's another Omnath.
Does Raph have lethal here, potentially? I mean, he's got that one of Kenrith. Can he go Omnath, Kenrith, Haste, double counter?
Oh, wow. He has 11 mana, but he has a land drop to give here. So 12, 5, 9, 10. No, he'd be a few mana short.
Unless he finds a Fabled Passage.
Right. Actually, you're right. But he didn't.
So
he found a
he can
pathway.
So he can go, if he went Kenrith, Haste, that would be an attack for 9.
Right.
Right.
What about?
And then he's got Bone Crusher. But
what about the Bone Crusher?
Well, Austin does have Negate for the Bone Crusher.
Right, and Austin has taken out the Lucky Clover, so he doesn't get the free copy that would have also been lethal. Oh,
right.
This is so close.
So there's nothing Levy can do. Excuse me. There's nothing Austin can do. So does he have? Oh, he's got a Clover, of course.
So he can just kill Omnath in response. Okay.
So he can kill Omnath in response. Now you
this
have
is
the Kenrith.
Incredibly close. But still,
Give it
Kenrith
haste.
is going to hit the battlefield and swing for 5 here, right?
Yeah, swing for 5, get down to 6. 2 hits from Ugin is also lethal. We've seen Ugin bolt to the face as a win condition before.
Boy, oh boy. Austin knows
him
that he's not dying this turn, but he knows
quite
how
low
close
enough.
this is. Down
Oh,
to
my
4
goodness.
goes Austin and passes his turn back, says Levy, but this could be a disaster for Levy, even with having moved perilously close to actually just killing Austin. Austin has so much at his disposal here.
Yeah.
You
No,
got to
that-
feel like Austin's in a good position, even though that was a scary turn.
That was definitely scary, but now that he's got Omnath into Fabled Passage here, he's going to be able to get the life back, generate a bunch of mana, has negate up for the Ugin that he knows Levy has.
Right. Wow, this has been quite a game. Boy, it looked so good for Austin early in this game. Maybe that was still this game.
Yeah. I mean, Austin could also use a Shatter Skull Smashing here to just kill Kenrith, as it is a pretty difficult permanent to deal with.
Does he have enough? Oh, yeah, he has enough. I was going to ask
Does he have enough mana?
question. Does he have enough mana? And the fact is, he has enough mana to do basically anything he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely tempting. We've seen how out of control Kenrith can get. Really on any situation, right? You need cards, it draws you cards. You need an attacker, it does that. Combination with Beanstalk Giant, it's scary as well, where all of a sudden you're getting attacked for 12 with haste and trample in addition to Kenrith.
One important thing to note here is Raphael Levy does not play with a fling effect in his sideboard.
Ah.
So
right.
basically, their team's way of getting in for the final few points of damage was to play with the card Embercleave. So he won't be able to put himself in a situation where he plays Beanstalk Giant and then wishes for fling to kill Austin.
Back to Raphael Levy, who draws a Lucky Clover, though he is out of adventure cards, at least in his hand. He's got plenty on an adventure. Here's Omnath to kick things off. Bursavich, of course, has left up negate.
Ooh, not bad. That was a very good draw.
Hey.
So now Levy can just play all those creatures that are on an adventure currently and cash them in for additional cards.
Yeah, I was just saying that the Lucky Clover doesn't do much for the creatures that are already on an adventure, but Edgewall Innkeeper certainly does.
Ooh.
There's a second Clover. I mean, Austin has a 16-16.
Yeah.
He's not messing around, but Raph is going to once again have effectively a full hand here when he passes the turn back.
Yeah, but remember that Wombo combo that we've seen Austin go for previously, right?
Yeah.
Which is
I know what
Primal,
you're going for.
Which is Bay of Wishes ×2 for Primal Might plus Fling.
Yes.
Right? Now Levy is at 28 life. But
Yes.
Austin does have a lot of mana available here.
Make it 32, Paul.
Okay.
Which is, we need to double up this Beanstalk Giant to get the job done. Do I get to ask the question, does he have enough mana now? Is it fair now to ask?
Well, that's reasonable because we're going to need a Primal Might for, if he plays the land.
For 16, yeah.
Yeah, for 15, right? Because he's going to play a land. So we're going to need a Primal Might for 15. I don't think he has mana to play Fae of Wishes, return it, wish, Primal Might, then fling. But he might at least try to set up for it.
We finally found something that he cannot do. Ooh,
that
hello,
was a
Giant
good
Killer
draw.
off the top.
Wow.
That'll kill two things, won't it?
Yeah, that'll get the Omnath and Bone Crusher Giant off the battlefield.
That was clutch there from Austin. 17-17 now for the Giant. Fae of Wishes is going to get cast a good old-fashioned way here.
Seeing Austin do this makes me think that there might be some line here that makes it so Austin wins. Oh, he can go Storm's Wrath into Fling. Right?
Storm's Wrath attack you, Fling.
Storm's Wrath attack Fling. That's 34 points of damage.
Wow, that is a much cleaner win
Wow.
than the other way. Austin is finding his way to perhaps finally a victory here. Boy, whoever comes out of this match is going to have to feel like they really earned it. This third game has been one for the ages, as these two players have dug deep into their libraries and sideboards to find the win. And it looks like the basically tapped out Raphael Levy has had enough. He's going to give the good game. An attack for 17 and a fling for 17 is enough to put Austin into the lower finals against Gabriel Nassif and knock out the French Hall of Famer. Incredible, Paul.
What a game.
Wow.
And, I mean, honestly, you have to at least give props here to Levy for making a good fight there, because it looked like Austin was going to run away with that. But Austin, I mean, his play just continues to impress, seeing basically all the lines and planning multiple steps ahead to find exactly what he needs to come out on top.
Yeah, I'm with you. Mad props to Raphael Levy, the Hall of Famer.